In the past, I've listed what I think are the best events in War and Order, and spoiler alert, I've always ended with Elite Wars as my favorite. But why is that? Hey guys, this is Heretic, and in this video, I'm going to go over the top 3 reasons why I think Elite Wars is the best event in War and Order, and I'm going to give some tips and tricks along the way. So let's get started. Also, stick around all the way to the end, and I promise this is not a super long video, for specific tips and tricks that maybe you didn't even know about that you and your alliance can use to be better at Elite Wars. Number 1, Elite Wars is fast-paced, reactionary, and requires pre-planned strategies that can go out the window as soon as the event begins. You generally know well in advance who your opponents are and the time of the event, so you can do some pre-planning. All right, so here's a trick that I'm going to show you, and we have to use this all the time. When you're actually searching for opponents to declare war on, you might see the same people over and over, the same alliances, and it may get old. You may set your time here, and you search, and you just see the same people again and again. To get all of your opponents that you can possibly pick from, go here to search, and just simply enter an underscore like this. All right, now search, and let it roll. And you will get a long list of opponents. You can hit this multiple times to get more choices here. And these are all of the opponents that your alliance can actually pick from. Also, I recommend you go and look at a calendar before you start this, or you have a calendar open on another device. That way you can see, because you'll see 228, and you'll see 229, you'll see 227 as you go. So it's good to have a calendar in front of you. All right, number 2, map variation. There are only a few different maps, but each require a different approach and strategy. Here are some examples of maps, including the 535 and the 23532 maps. These have completely different approaches to prevent the opponents from slipping through. So you don't want to let your opponents, you don't want to divide up, or you don't want to go down a line that exposes another line that will allow people to fly through and hit you. And it will also have different methods for guarding your base while you're actually attacking the enemy. So there's a lot of different things you have to do. Every map is a little bit different. So on my second trick here, I would suggest working on blocking. You can never start too early. I know in the beginning you're not going to need it. Most likely you're not going to need it. But eventually you're going to face opponents that are at least as good as you are. And so when you get to there, having a small group focused on keeping your enemy in battle is something that you'll want to do. You're probably going to do it a lot earlier in Elite Adventures, and this will give your alliance practice at it. You have to do this in Elite Adventures because you're focusing on one line, eventually on your maps, 20, 23, something like that. You're going to have to focus on one path through to be able to make it through in time. In the beginning, and this is not, later in the game, you're going to be so strong, it's all a joke, right? But when you're first starting out, you're going to have to focus on one line to beat it in time, no matter how many people join your Elite Adventures. And having a few people that can keep the other lines busy so that they can't attack your base while your main group is going off and attacking the enemy base is really important. And that is even more important practice when you get to Elite Wars, where you're going to want to do the same thing. But in Elite Wars, you can do this blocking on any castle. I know one time in EOL, we had our blockers hitting the enemy base. So the enemy had a ton, really strong, I don't remember if it was KO6 or if it was TLS, but they had a very, very strong group, of course. At that level, you will. And the only way that we could really beat them is we kept that base busy, because when the enemy base is being attacked, no one can heal and no one can rejoin. so they can't add their troops to the base. So we had our main force hitting and hitting and hitting their main base. The blockers kept that battle busy, so that as we lost a battle, people could heal up and make it all the way back to the enemy base so that we could win that. More commonly, you're going to do that closer to your base, where you're going to keep the enemy blocked and in battle. And a lot of times, that's going to be the difference between winning and losing. Because let's say you're facing someone, your top castle in your alliance is a 35, and you're facing a 40, and you think, oh my God, we're going to lose. Well, if you can keep that 40 busy while the rest of your force hits their base, that's going to get you a win. That's where blockers come in. Blockers are super important. So really take a look at it for your alliance. If you're serious about Elite Wars, it's going to be super important to you. I have a whole series on the different map strategies. I'm going to link to this playlist in the description of this video if you're interested. I highly recommend that you take a look at it. It'll give you lots of different ideas and strategies depending on the map that you're doing. And as you're building up your Elite Wars team, you're going to want to know the different maps and what you can do. And I'll also add links to, or the actual images in the description as well, of the different types of maps, and you can use that to build your own strategy. All right, so number 3, and the last one, and the most important part of the Elite Wars, the top reason that I think that Elite Wars is the best event in the game. In this event, unlike any other event, experience and teamwork mean everything. And by experience and teamwork, I mean great commanding. Unlike some events where you might be able to just overpower your opponents every single time, at some point you're going to face, like I said, you're going to face someone whose power, whose technology is at least as good as your team's and probably better, right? And you can still beat them with a great commander and with people following orders. If you know what you're doing, you have the experience, you could have some team, some people that will go off on their own and they'll make decisions because it's all done on the fly. But having that great commander that builds the main group through, that builds in the flankers through, super important. And don't forget, you have groups that you can use. So here, take a look at the groups and the way that you can set it up. And you can kind of see our groups. We're going to have to update it before our next Elite Wars. But, here's what it looks like for us. We have a top group, a middle group, and a bottom group, basically. You can have more. I've seen up to 5 different groups, depending on what you're trying to do. You could have one group that you just call speed, and then you have the other one that's called blocker, and then you can have another one called main. And then speed should be people who have enough speeds to last throughout the whole event, and they're usually your heaviest hitters. Your blockers, obviously, we talked about that. And on blockers, what's a different thing, again, real quick, another thing that's different between Elite Adventures. In Elite Adventures, you can just use your beast and keep the battle going. Whereas in Elite Wars, you might want to have more troops in there because you need to keep that battle going as long as you can. And what I would recommend is that you time in your blockers about 5 seconds behind each other, and you keep that battle just going. That battle never ends. It never ends, and it gives the rest of your group time to go in and actually win the battle, the Elite War. Anyway, so here's the last strategy. All right, so the last trick is, before you join Elite Wars, make sure everyone has the expansion B skill on, and then once they join Elite Wars, and while you're waiting for that battle to begin, exit Elite Wars and switch your B skill to another one. This will keep your march size using the B skill boost, so it'll boost up your 10% or 15% or whatever it is that you get from the B skill, and then you can switch that over to something like mage reduction or whatever it is, and then you'll get that new B skill technology applied to your battles throughout that Elite Wars. All right, so again, I tried to keep this as quick as I possibly could. Probably talked a little bit too much, as I tend to do, but with that, Take care.